is a level 1 writing exam. So it's still very useful, even if you're studying at level 2, because it will obviously cover a lot of the basics, but we'll also be showing you what the exam systems look like, or what the practice exam system looks like. It's very, very similar, and just give you a good idea of what it's going to look like when it comes around to your real exams. So when you receive your email from the exam board, it will have a secure link to open up something resembling this in your internet browser. It is better if you use Google Chrome, just because it is an extension that the invigilation system uses. However, I believe that anything Chrome compatible will still work as well. On the email, you will also be given a key code, which is basically just like a passcode or a security number that you will put in here. Obviously, this is just a demonstration, so we've just got a random selection. So you click on OK, check that you are sitting the right exam. So it is a writing exam, it is level 1. Now, I book the exams, so it should be the correct one, but we do ask you to check this before you start, just to make sure. You don't want to be sitting anything daft. And you're confirming that you obviously are agreeing to the normal rules of conduct that I will send to you out in a document beforehand. So it's just that you will ensure that you're alone in the room when you're completing the exam, you're not wearing headphones or a smartwatch, that all of the answers are yours and yours only, and you've not used any kind of AI, things like spell checkers, things like that, because in the writing exam, you do get marked your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So once you're happy with all that, you click continue, and your exam opens up. Now, the best thing about the writing exam is this: it has recently gone up. The exam used to just be 1 hour. Now you have an extra 10 minutes. And for those of you that maybe struggle with getting the words out or coming up with ideas, that 10 minutes can make a huge, huge difference. So the opening page just reminds you to answer all of the questions, to read each question carefully. It tells you the maximum marks, so it's 40, and there are 2 questions, so it's 20 marks and 20 marks. And when you're ready, you click start. So it tells us the 2 subjects that the questions are going to be on. The first one being casual work, the second one being about an event you enjoyed. Then it will tell us the format, so what do they want us to look like. They want the first document to look like an email and the second one to look like an article. Right, let's have a look at the first question. It says, write an email. We have a potential of 20 marks, and we need to be scoring in the region of 13 or 14 in order to pass the exam. So it says here, allow 35 minutes to plan, write, and proofread to check your work after you've finished. I would usually say 5 minutes should be enough to plan and to proofread, and then give yourself 30 minutes to do the actual writing. And then we're given a space below the question, and this is where we write our answers. So it says the Marsden Summer Festival. It will take place at Askew Park from the 10th to the 13th of July. It's always a great weekend, but we need staff to make sure the event is a success. We need ticket sellers, bar staff, and festival guides. All accommodation is provided. We pay expenses and we offer a generous hourly rate. If you're interested in being part of the team, email us at, and then we're given an email address at the bottom. So there we go. So the question tells us 3 things that we must include when we are writing. So the first thing I'm going to do is use these bullet points as almost, in my head, it's like a shopping list. They are 3 things I must remember, because otherwise I have to keep looking at the question. So what skills you have that would be useful? There we go. So it's those 3 ideas, those 3 things. So there's a summer festival, and we are applying to work at this summer festival. Right. Okay. So the first things first, we have been given an email address. So we're going to make sure that we write that into the email address bar. Now, ordinarily, it will allow you to copy and paste them. I'm afraid on this practice exam, it's a picture, so it won't allow me to. But most of the time, it will just let you copy and paste the address in there. The subject, so we're just going to give them an idea of what we're talking about in our email today. So I would say application for festival position, application for festival job, working at the festival, anything like that would be totally fine, as long as you're giving them an idea of why we're writing. Now, we haven't been given the name of a person to address this to. Therefore, we're going to use a job title that we think would be fairly suitable. So I'm going to say, dear, now usually if it's to do with jobs, it's the recruitment manager. It could say, dear recruitment team, dear recruitment advisor. Any of those would be acceptable. And again, part of this little shopping list, I'm going to remind myself to include an introduction at the beginning and some form of little conclusion at the end. And then I'm going to remember to sign it off with my name. So this is how I plan my documents. If you choose to do it another way, that's totally fine. However, as I say, my memory, my short-term memory is terrible. So if I don't put the information here, I have to keep scrolling up and down, looking at the question. So I put the key points that I must include here. And then as I'm writing, I remove them. It's like a shopping list. I've bought something, I cross it off. The next thing, cross it off. And then I need to end my email appropriately. So in this case, I do not know their name. So I'm going to have faith that they are going to respond. I'm going to end it with yours faithfully. If you know their name, you can use sincerely. But if you don't know their name, you use yours faithfully instead. And you do get a mark on the exam for using the correct hello, the correct greeting at the beginning, and the correct ending right at the very end of the email. So, my introduction. This is where I just basically want to give them an idea of why I am contacting them. So, I have recently seen an advert or an advertisement for positions at the, go back and check the name. It's called the Marsden Summer Festival. At the Marsden Summer Festival. And would like to express my interest. It's a very short introduction, but that's fine, because now the person who receives the email will know whether or not they are going to be the person responsible for answering it, or whether or not they are disseminating it to another member of staff. Now, just to show you as well, one of the wonderful things about these online exams, you don't have to count the words. It will do it for you. Every time you touch that keyboard, it will count the words that you're writing. So you don't need to sit there counting along the words on the screen. Now you'll see this one doesn't give us a word count. But if I tell you that this is a level 1 exam, the minimum you should be writing is about 150 words. Now, I'll tell you what it is for the level 2 exams when we do the level 2 papers later this week. But at level 1, it's 150 words. Now, if we look at how I've sort of planned this out, I need to include a conclusion. I need to talk about the experience. I need to talk about the skills, the role that I'm interested in, and I'm going to talk about my little introduction at the beginning. If I did 30 words for each one of these, it would add up to 150 words. So you don't have to be writing pages and pages and pages at level 1. You could say a good 3 or 4 sentences for each one of these points will be more than enough. Now, you don't get penalised if you go over the word count. The only issue is there are 2 questions, and if you write too much for the first one, you may not have enough time to answer question number 2. So just be very careful. You can always edit things, but you will never be penalised for going over. The only possible problem is the time. So let's have a look at the next part of this. Let's see. Which role are you interested in and why? Okay, so it mentions that there are 3 particular jobs: ticket sellers, bar staff, and festival guides. Okay, so I believe there are openings or vacancies for ticket sellers, bar staff, and festival guides. I would be very interested in applying for the position as a festival guide, as now I'm going to say that I have been to this festival many times, so I have some experience that could be useful. This is not true in reality. This festival does not exist. It is not real. I am using my imagination, and you are totally, that is entirely fine. So I would be very interested in applying for the position as a festival guide, as I have attended the festival for the past 5 years, as I have attended the festival for the past 5 years. Now, I don't want to accidentally go into the next subject line. Let's stop there and I'll start a new paragraph. What skills do you have that would be useful? Okay. I am a warm, friendly, and approachable person who is able to assist festival visitors in different ways. I know the site very well, so can offer directions to the various events, as well as the toilets and first aid facilities. I'm trying to think what's important at a festival. There we go. Look, we're already on 116 words. That didn't take very much. Look, we've not written very much. We haven't written a lot on this one. So how will the experience help you in the future? Okay. I think the experience would be very beneficial to me because I would love to work in events management in the future. Yeah, this is why we do spell checking at the end, to make sure that we're not making mistakes, because sometimes our heads and our hands don't always work at the same speed. So I think the experience would be very beneficial to me because I would love to work in events management in the future. Okay, so we only need 21 more words for the conclusion. So what do I want from the person I'm sending this message to? I want them to contact me for an interview, or to tell me more about the jobs, or to maybe ask me questions. I want them to contact me. So this is where we become very British. We use our manners. I would be very grateful if you would contact me on phone number Okay, again, doesn't have to be real. If you would be interested in finding out more about my suitability for the role. Yours faithfully, Alex Thompson. 155 words. Do you know what? I think that's not bad at all. Now, what I'm hoping to do depends, as always, if we have time in the session today. We're going to complete 2 of the exam questions, And then if we have time, we're going to have a look at the mark scheme, the answer booklet. And we're going to mark these pieces and see if this was a real exam, would it pass? Okay. We're going to move at this point, before we check anything, we're going to move to question 2. Because I find when I'm looking for mistakes in my own writing, if I looked at it now, I will see what I want it to say. Whereas if I go and do the other piece, I come back, I'm looking at it with slightly more fresh eyes. And therefore, I find it a lot easier to find mistakes that way. Okay, so question 2, write an article. Okay, so an article like a newspaper or a magazine, right? Again, it's worth 20 marks. So it's the same number of marks as the first piece. And look, this one has a word count. If they both have 20 marks and one of them says do a minimum of 150 words, common sense says we should do 150 for both of them. That makes sense. Again, we've been given 3 specific things to write about. And the story part of this says, people sometimes enjoy watching or taking part in events such as sport, concerts, or local activities. Write an article about an event you have enjoyed. In your article, you could describe the event, explain how you felt during the event, and give the details of the best and worst parts. Now, if you've ever sat through this lesson with me before, you will know that I always talk about the same one. It is one of my favourite events that happens locally every year. I live in a rural, semi-rural environment, and there are a lot of farms. And I love farms, I love animals, and I love farming equipment. Every year in this town, we have a tractor rally. So the farmers come out, and there are hundreds, if not maybe even 1,000 tractors will tour the entirety of the village, and we have old tractors, we have new tractors, there are some vintage and, you know, like very old ones, collectors items, different colours, different sizes, and it's all to raise money for the local young farmers group, and I love it. I could talk about sports, but I don't like sports, so I've no real life experience. I could talk about concerts. I could lie and say I've been to see Taylor Swift, or shit, I can't even think of anybody else, Ed Sheeran. But the same thing applies. I'm going to use something from my real life for this, but I may add a little bit of extra detail, maybe a little bit of extra drama perhaps as well. So because my real life experience is about this tractor rally, that's what I'm going to write about. Now, it says I'm going to write an article. So an article must always have a headline at the top, giving you just a few words explaining what is the content of the text. One of the best things you can do is to use certain language techniques. You can use humour. Humour works very well. If you have a funny caption, it can really draw the eye of the reader. Alternatively, you could use something like, my favourite one for this is alliteration. It's where we choose a few words in a row that all start with the same letter. So because I'm talking about the tractor event, and because it's good, can I think of a word for good that begins with the letter T? I'm going to say terrific. Terrific tractor, and they go around the village, they tour the village. I'm going to say it's a terrific tractor tour. So it's only 3 words, but it tells our readers the content of the article itself. Therefore, go make it a little bit bigger. And the same as for the first document, we're going to have some form of introduction at the beginning, and we'll have a little conclusion at the end. And because this is an article, rather than it being addressed to a person, we don't need to end it with yours sincerely or anything like that, but it is always helpful if we do what's called an attribution. Who is the article attributed to? Who wrote it. So you can just write by and your name at the top. That's it. So now we begin writing. The introduction. Now, it says that I'm writing this for, in fact, it doesn't actually tell me. It says write an article. So I'm going to write this as if I were writing to other people who live locally to me who may not be aware of this event. So I'm going to start with just telling them an outline, a summary of what is the event. You may have seen on Sunday last week a rise in the number of agricultural vehicles on the roads. Oh dear me, my spelling. No, it's not my spelling, it's my typing. You may see a rise in the number of agricultural vehicles on the roads in and around, let's make up the name of a place, Alixton. I could say London, I could say Manchester, Sheffield, Reading, Nottingham, anywhere. Doesn't matter. I'm going to say Alixton is the name of this town. So you may have seen on Sunday last week a rise in the number of agricultural vehicles on the roads in and around Alixton. The yearly tractor parade ran from 1 p.m. when it started at, I don't know, a garden centre and finished at 3 p.m. at the, and again, I'm going to say the name of a pub. I'm just making these up. These do not have to be real places. It is entirely from your imagination. But if you use your imagination, it makes the document sound more real. If I just said, in a town last week, there were lots of tractors and it was very fun to watch, that's okay, but it doesn't sound like something that you would really read in a paper. So in that case, I'm trying to add some little details like places and times to make it that bit more realistic. So the next part says describe the event. So I'm going to say I managed to find an excellent place to sit with a great cup of coffee and a cake and watch the huge variety of tractors go past. Now I'm just going to make a little note. I need to include something about the sounds because everybody goes meep, meep, meep as they're going along and you can hear it echoing up the valley. I'll probably talk about that when I'm talking about the best parts. And the worst parts is when you can't find somewhere to sit and you have to sit on the grass. I managed to find an excellent place to sit with a great cup of coffee and a cake and watch the huge variety of tractors go past. It was really exciting. It feels as though the entire population of Alixton all come out to support their local young farmers, and that's got a capital letter on young and farmers because the Young Farmers is a charity that look after the health and well-being of people who grow up on farms and become young farmers. So explain how I felt during the event. I always get ready for the event well in advance and make sure I'm prepared to sit for potentially hours as the parade goes through the town. It fills me full of pride to see such a wonderful event. Okay, so look, we're already on 151 words and I still have 2 parts to write about. Now, because this is an event that I do truly love and I have real life experience of it, I find this one quite easy to write because there are so many different things that I want to write about it. Now, if it says give the best and worst parts of the event, the best part of the day is just as all of the tractors start their journey and the echoes of the blaring horns. The best part of the day is as all the tractors start their journey and the echoes of the blaring horns ringing through the valley. You can hear them coming from miles away. The worst part is if you aren't able to find somewhere comfortable to sit because it might mean sitting on a grass bank for a long time. Now you can see I'm using quite a few exclamation marks in this. And we usually, if we exclaim, it's because we're trying to say something with a bit of enthusiasm, a little bit of power. And in this case, I'm trying to make it sound positive. So you can hear them coming from miles away rather than you can hear them coming from miles away. It's adding that little bit of extra enthusiasm. So my conclusion, what do I want from the people I'm writing this to? I want them to enjoy it as well. So if you've got even a tiny bit of interest in tractors, make sure you check the route and find a good place to join in next year. But I'm going to try and end it with a little bit of a funny note. Just don't try and take my favourite spot, my favourite vantage point, my favourite place to look at this event from. Okay, 237 words. That was a lot faster. Okay, I'm going to go back now and look at the first page that I did. And this is where I'm going to check and make sure that I have not made any spelling mistakes. So what I do for this is I slow down. I don't read quickly. I read each word just quietly under my breath to make sure I've made the right word endings, to make sure that I've written what I want it to say, rather than just what I think it should say. So, dear recruitment manager, I have recently seen an advertisement for positions at the Marsden Summer Festival, capital letters, okay, and would like to express my interest. I believe there are openings for ticket sellers, bar staff and festival guides. I would be very interested in applying for the position as a festival guide, as I have attended the festival for the past 5 years. Okay, no mistakes so far. Phew. I am a warm, friendly and approachable person who is able to assist festival visitors in different ways. I know the site very well, so can offer directions to the various events as well as the toilets and first aid facilities. I think the experience would be very beneficial to me because I would love to work in events management in the future. I would be grateful if you would contact me on blah, 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 if you would be interested in finding out more about my suitability for the role. Yours faithfully, Alex Thompson. Okay. So I think most of the mistakes that I made, I pretty much cleared those up as I saw them. So we do the same now for this. Terrific Tractor Tour by Alex Thompson. There we go. You may have seen on Sunday last week a rise in the number of agricultural vehicles on the roads in and around Alixton. The yearly tractor parade ran from 1 p.m. when it started at Ward's Garden Centre and finished at 3 p.m. at the Miners' Arms. I managed to find an excellent place to sit, have a little pause, with a great cup of coffee and a cake, and watch the huge variety of tractors go past. It was really exciting. It feels as though the entire population of Alixton all come out to support their local young farmers. I always get ready for the event well in advance and make sure I'm prepared to sit for potentially hours. Prepared to sit potentially for hours is what that should say. So even though the words are right, they're in the wrong order. As the parade goes through the town, it fills me full of pride to see such a wonderful event. The best part of the day is just as all the tractors start their journey and the echoes of the blaring horns ringing through the valley. You can hear them coming from miles away. The worst part is if you aren't able to find somewhere comfortable to sit, because it might mean sitting on a grass bank for a long time. So, if you've got even a tiny bit of interest in tractors, make sure you check the route and find a good place to join in next year. Just don't try to take my favourite spot. Right, let's get the answer booklet up for this one, and then we will mark them together. Now this, with it being one of the newest NCFE papers, I've opened the reading. We want the writing mark scheme. Is this the level 1? Let me just check. Nope. Right. Bear with me. Level 1, writing mark scheme. So this is our answer booklet essentially. And you can see there's a lot of information on here that you don't at this point need to know. And I will show you exactly where to focus on each one of these. I will highlight the important information. So at level 1, you can get for each one of these texts, so the one about the tractors and the one about the festival, there is a maximum of 3 marks each for spelling, 3 marks each for punctuation, and 3 marks each for grammar. So this first one that we're looking at is punctuation. So in order to achieve 3 marks, I would need to use consistently correct punctuation. For example, if we've used them, question marks, exclamation marks, commas, and possessive apostrophes. So if we use any of these punctuation marks, we need to use them correctly. Now, if we look at the first document that I wrote to start with, so when I was checking for spelling, I was also checking for a couple of other things as well. So at the beginning of every sentence, I have a capital letter. I have capital letters on proper nouns, so the name of individual, people, places, or like this, Marsden Summer Festival, events. We have the correct use of a comma in that first opening line. We have full stops. I think apart from that, again, we have commas, we have full stops. We haven't used a great variety of punctuation on this, but what we have used has been used correctly. So you can see here, have we used a range of punctuation? I would say I've been quite minimal on mine. There haven't been any minor errors, but you can see you can make mistakes. Making mistakes is fine as long as it doesn't change the meaning of what's been said. So I would say, if I'm being fair to myself, because I haven't used a range on that first document, I'm just going to write this down to keep a score. That first document, I would give myself 2 for punctuation because I haven't used enough of a variety. I've only used commas and full stops. In the second document, however, I have used commas, full stops, exclamation marks, apostrophes, a much bigger range, and I've used them correctly. And I know that from reading through and checking it. Therefore, in the first document, I would give myself 2 marks. In the second document, I would give myself 3 marks because I've used more variety and I've used them correctly. So you can still make mistakes and get 3 marks. You can see if your punctuation is generally correct, you would score 2 marks. And if it's correct in some places, you would score 1 mark. So it's not just yes and no. It's perfect, good, needs a bit of work. That's how the marking is done. Now, if we look at this one, the next part that we're looking at is grammar. So again, this is looking at, well, for example, in the tractor document, I'm talking about an event that happened in the past. So when I'm describing what has happened, I'm talking about things in the past tense. If I'm talking about what I'm feeling now, it's in the present tense. And if I was talking about the event next year, it would be in the future. There's no confusion between what I'm doing and the tense that I'm doing it in. For example, if I'm talking in the past about walked, I would say I walked, we walked in the past. If I'm talking about now, we are walking, and in the future, we are going to walk. So the word endings, we're making sure that everything is, make sure they all agree with each other throughout the document. Again, because I've read them back and I've checked, I'm afraid as an English teacher, and for somebody who is usually trying to do these in a hurry, when I go through and check the spelling punctuation, I also check the grammar at the same time as well. And if there had been a mistake with any of the grammar, I would have corrected it. So in this case, for both of those documents, I would give myself a 3. Again, to get a 2, you need generally correct. And to score 1, some correct. As long as the text you are writing communicates information either clearly for 3 marks, okay for grade 2, and maybe struggles with the clarity, you would get 1 mark. In this case, I will give myself 3 marks for each document. And again, spelling. Obviously, I'm going to give myself 3 marks because I couldn't spot any mistakes. And there were some ambitious words in there. But if you do struggle with some ambitious words, you may find it easier to use simpler words instead. For example, I know I said, I think I used the word agricultural. I could just say countryside or to do with farms. As long as I spell these straightforward words, I would get 2 marks. But if I go and try and get a higher register language and spell it correctly, I can get 3 marks. So I think in the tractor document, in this one, my choice of words has been that little bit higher register. So I would give myself 3. In the first document, I think the language I've used is a lot simpler. Maybe advertisement is a decent one, but everything else is fairly a good register of language throughout. So in the tractor document, I would give myself 3 marks. In the festival document, I would give myself 2. Now, the next thing, the writing composition. So this is basically, we've looked at the spelling, the punctuation and grammar, those finer points of how we put everything together. What they want to know in this particular thing, and again, it's worth a maximum of 3 marks per text, is the piece that I'm writing consistently clear and coherent? Is the message that I am writing clear and easy to understand for the person that's reading it? If it is consistently accurate in communicating information, ideas and opinions, it's fine. If it's generally clear, we would get 2 marks. And again, if there's some clarity and coherence, if it's maybe you've not quite answered the question or you've not hit all of those bullet points, or if you've gone off talking about something that's not quite right, then you would still score lower marks. In our case, we know we've done it correctly because we have answered, we have written about how the experience will help me in the future, and we have included what skills would be useful, and we have, it's why I write those in the text to start with, because this is what we get marked on. In both documents, I would give myself 4 marks. This next one is just a quick one. This says the response has the appropriate level of detail for the purpose and audience. Have we answered those 3 points? Have we written to the word count? And that also sort of runs in tandem with this second one that says the response is of an appropriate length for the purpose and audience. And that says where specified. So what it means is, in the second document, we were given a word count, 150 to 250. In the first document, we weren't, but have we still written enough detail to answer the questions? Now, we know from looking at them that this first document was 155, fine. The second document, much longer, 237. They would both score an extra 2 marks each. So it's 1, 1, 1, 1. So we get 1 mark for each text for it being long enough, and then 1 for having the correct level of detail. Then, I'm afraid these documents are never that useful. They're never that sort of reader friendly. These are meant for the teachers. These are meant for the examiners. So the next bit says formatting. Does the document look like an email? Does the document look like an article? And there's just a little appendix on this. So we were asked to write an email. So what the exam board would like to see is, have we used a salutation and a matching close? A salutation is like a salute, it's a greeting. So have we, in the email, the first one, greeted our reader? Yes, we've said, dear recruitment manager. Have we used the matching ending? In this case, yes, we have ended it with yours faithfully. That would score us another mark. It also wants us to ensure that we include the recipient's email address and the subject line. So have we written the email address we were given into the address box? Yes. Have we put a subject in there? Yes. So we would score, let's just go back to this one. Have we used the main formatting feature for the email? Yes. Have we used an additional one? Yes. Now the next part says the main formatting must be attempted and email tasks must have a correct email address and a subject line to get the most marks. Okay, so we would get 1 mark for the email, for writing the email address and the subject bar, and then we would get an additional mark for saying, dear recruitment manager, yours faithfully. So we get 2 for that. On the article, it says we must have a heading and then one of these following 3 choices, either subheadings or bullet points or the author's name. So if we look at this, we have our headline at the top and we have our author's name. That means we would score 2 marks, 1 for having the heading, the one in bold, and 1 for having the author's name. So you can see all of these marks add up. If we look at the next part, so again, it's all about the structure. Does it have a recognisable start, middle, and end? Do you introduce the subject, give all the detail, and then finish it at the end? And the answer is yes. On both of those documents, we would score another mark. And then the last part of the structure, the language. So this is where we're thinking about who are we writing to. If we were writing to somebody in a position of respect, we would use a very high register formal tone. We would use full versions of words rather than digits. For example, in that first one where we were applying for a job, we should use relatively formal language. In the second one, where I'm trying to extol the virtues and tell all about the good things about the Tractor Festival, In that one, I could be a bit more friendly, a bit more informal. So have we used the approachable, have we used the most suitable level of language for each text? And again, I think yes, in that case, I would give myself 1 mark for each of those. And the last one, paragraphs. Oh, sorry, paragraphs and complex sentences. If you have written at least 2 paragraphs properly, you will get an extra mark. Now we can see just from looking back at the documents, the paragraphs are nicely separated. So we have one that is our introduction. We have the first point. We have the second point. We have the third point. So more than anything, it says we need a minimum of 2. I've done 5 because I spoke about 5 different things. So we would get an extra mark on either of those. Now, the last one. Have we got at least 2, ignore the word demarcate, have we got 2 complex sentences? Now, I deliberately did this a certain way. I managed to find an excellent place to sit with a great cup of coffee and a cake and watch a huge variety of tractors go past. This is a complex sentence because it isn't just expressing one thought or idea. We have put between these 2 commas in the middle, we have put some added extra information. I could say, I managed to find an excellent place to sit and watch a huge variety of tractors go past. But what makes this a complex sentence is this additional information in the middle. I did that deliberately to be able to show you a working example of it. If I show you the first document, if we just go back to that one, I'm pretty sure this was a lot simpler. These are mainly simple sentences, like, I believe there are openings for these jobs. One idea expressed in 1 sentence. I would be very interested in applying for the position as a festival guide is a simple sentence. But then we've got a gluing word, a conjunction, and another simple sentence. I have attended the festival for the past 5 years. So this one's a compound. Don't worry if you're unsure about these. There is a full video on the YouTube channel explaining and giving you multiple examples of complex sentences. However, I've done this so that in the second document, I would score a mark for that. In the first, I would not. So that is the total number of marks. That first document would have scored 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17. The second document, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So in total, that would have meant that my score would be 37 out of 40 marks. You need to score 56%, which I believe is 20, let's say 25 marks. So if you can score something along the lines of 13 marks on each text, then you would pass that. The other thing is, when you do these writing exams, the feedback that we get back from the exam board is wonderful. It breaks down each one of those things and tells us how well you've scored on it. And it gives us a percentage for each one of those individual learning outcomes. So if, for example, your exam results come back and it says you missed it by 1 mark, that's okay. Because A, the first time you do the exam, if you pass it, brilliant, never need to do it again. If you don't, the feedback can tell us what to focus on before you try the exams again. So that's it for the level 1 writing exam. I shall just stop recording. We'll be back on class tomorrow afternoon for level 2 reading exam.